What's up guys, my name is Josh, welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be talking about cards that need a buff, and I'm going to go ahead and jump straight in and say that I feel like the heal spell needs some love. You know, ever since it's come out, basically no one's used it ever. I can probably name one deck that people use it in, and I'm sure you guys know it too. It's the three Musketeer deck. That's kind of the only deck that it fits in, that it works in, that it makes sense in. I think the main problem with the card, first of all, before we talk about what I think they could do to buff it, I just want to talk about the problems of the card and why it's so kind of hard to deal with in a way. The main problem with the card is, and like a lot of other spells inside the game, like the Rage and the Clone, they don't offer any defensive value. And for 3 elixir, you know, they don't do tower damage, they can't help you on defense. So when you compare them to spells such as the Log for 2 elixir, which not only is defensively amazing, but offers constant chip damage towards the tower, when you look at spells such as the Heal, the Rage, the Clone, they don't do that. They only offer you offensive value. Now, some might say, well, you know, you got to risk it for reward. You know, the higher the risk, the more reward. And I get that with the Clone spell. You know, it costs 3 elixir. If you use it correctly, you can just decimate a tower, and I get that. And it's super risky, but it's super, you know, high reward, and I understand that. But I think there's no point releasing spells like that because nobody's going to use them, because you can't. It's too risky to use them. That's the problem. You know, with there being other spells that are just way better and offer both offensive and defensive values, that's what you have to look for in a spell, and that's what the heal spell doesn't offer you. It offers you no defensive value, you know, unless you use it on like a minion horde for defense, but you're just not going to do that because it's so situational. The only situation I can think of would be when the opponent zaps your minion horde. Or, okay, so they play a Hog Rider, you use a Minion Horde to defend that Hog Rider, they zap that Minion Horde, then you heal the Minion Horde, and then go on the counter with a Miner. But it's so situational, you know, and that's one of the only scenarios I can think of where defensively it works, and then transverses to offense. But yeah, I can't think of any other situation where you can't use a heal spell to defend a push, you know, like you could a fireball, like you could poison, like you could arrows. You know, you can't use the spell to defend something that's coming at your tower, and that's what the problem is. You know, the reason why people use the Log, you know, arrows, zap, fireball, poison, and they're pretty much the only spells, and the rocket, they're pretty much the only spells that you get used explicitly throughout the game, and have been since day one, or since they've been released, because they offer so much offensive and defensive value, whereas the heal spell, Clone spell, Rage spell, they just don't. And that's what the problem is with the card. You know, I actually really like the concept of the card, the fact that you can heal your troops up. And, you know, I don't necessarily think that it should offer defensive value, but I think, and this will go into what I think should happen with the buff, I think if you're going to make a spell that's just for offense, you need to be able to make it worth that player's elixir, I guess. You need to make it worth their time. You know, 3 elixir is such a commitment. You know, when you use that 3 elixir heal spell on a push and it doesn't come off, you're now 3 elixir down. And then you've got to defend whatever they have coming at you with 3 less elixir, right? So first of all, I think they could do one of two things. They could completely rework the card, make it a 2 elixir card, so take 1 elixir off it, which they have done in the past, but they haven't done recently. They haven't reworked any cards recently. I think the last card to get a rework was the Bowler, if I'm not mistaken. It went from 6 elixir to 5 elixir, and that was over a year ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the Bowler. I'm a big fan of reworks. I think if a card isn't working, if it's not showing good win rates, if it's not showing good usage rates, why not rework it? why not try out a different way for the card to become viable, to become popular, to become the card that it needs to be? And one of the two ways I think they could do that with the heal spell would bring it down to 2 elixir and then reduce the heal down, to 2 seconds. It's at 2.5 seconds right now at tournament standard. Reduce it down to 2 seconds, and then of course reduce the healing per second down as well with it. And then that makes it just so much more viable because, okay, if you spend 2 elixir and it doesn't come off, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to lose a tower because you spent 2 elixir. But that jump from 2 elixir to 3 elixir is so huge. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot. Obviously, it's 1 elixir. It doesn't sound like much, but it is when you're talking about trying to defend a push. When you're 2 elixir down, you're fine. You can defend, perfectly well. When you're 3 elixir down, that's going to be a struggle. It's going to be much, much harder for you to defend. And again, I know it's only 1 elixir, but it does make a huge difference. So yeah, I think they could bring it down to 2 elixir, make the duration 2 seconds, and see how that works. If it doesn't work, then they can obviously try other stuff, but they would obviously test that out in game, in private servers, in their headquarters and stuff like that, and see how it works. And the second thing I think they could do would be keep it at 3 elixir, but instead of healing slowly, it takes 2.5 seconds to heal up the troop, right? So if you're playing 3 musketeers, you've got to wait 2.5 seconds for all of that heal spell to affect the musketeers. In those 2.5 seconds, the opponent could have already killed the musketeers. So, you've just used that 3 elixir heal spell on something that isn't even there anymore. Perhaps your reactions aren't as quick as they need to be in the game. But if you think that, for example, the Mega Knight completely counters the musketeers, and you can't. How can you use a heal spell when someone drops a Mega Knight? But if you preemptively place the heal spell and then the Mega Knight gets dropped, you've just lost free elixir because you can't heal up the musketeers if they're constantly being smacked by the Mega Knight. It's just not going to work. So I think they should, for the second buff that I think that they could go for, I think just take away the duration completely. Make it instant heal. Make it so that when you plant that heal spell on whatever troop you're trying to heal, whether it be a minion horde or a three musketeers, instantly heal them. So if they have a sliver of health, or whatever health they have, low health, if you put the heal spell on top of that troop, it should instantly heal the troop. Those 2 ways for me are the only 2 things you can really do with the card. Like I said, the most important thing for spells is to have defensive and offensive values, but you can't really. The heal spell is so unique. What can you make it? How can you make it have a defensive value? You can't really, or maybe you can, but I can't personally think of a way. So yeah, I think they should either drop it down to 2 elixir, take 0.5 seconds away from the duration, and then reduce the healing per second to fit with the scale of the rework, or they could keep it at 3 elixir, remove the duration completely, and have it be an instant heal. I really do think that that's like small enough buff or a small enough rework to where it becomes viable and people actually start using it. I can say for me personally, I'd never ever pick the heal spell on my own. The only time I've ever played of it is in draft challenges when I've been given the card, and even then in draft challenges I'll never pick the card. I'll always pick the other card. If I see a heal spell and another card next to it, I'm never picking heal spell because it's so bad. It's completely unviable and unfun to use, and it's completely too risky to use. That's the thing. It's just way too risky to use, and it's just so unique and situational that it doesn't work even with every card anyway, and that's the problem as well. That's for 3 elixir, it doesn't even work with all the cards. So yeah, and then the second way would be for the instant heal. I don't know which way they would prefer, or which way would be more of a buff or less of a buff. I personally would probably like to see it go down to 2 elixir, because I'm a big fan of reworks. I love the fact that they can just admit that they've got the card wrong at the start, and then rework the card and then throw it back into the game and see how it performs. When they did it with the bowler, it was a great success. When they did it with the goblin barrel, It went from 4 elixir to 3 elixir, great success. When they did it with the rage spell, again, it was a pretty much great success. They put the rage spell from 3 elixir to 2 elixir, and you know, it didn't make it OP. You see rage spell way more than you ever did, and it definitely works in some situations. And people do use rage spell on the ladder, and it's quite a struggle to play against sometimes. You know, especially if they're running like elite barbarians, like hog rider rage, like witch rage and giant. You know, it can be a struggle. So it's proven that a rework can really reinvent a spell, and I would love to see them buff the heal spell or rework it in some way. I really would love that. Let me know what you guys thought about my thoughts in the comments down below. If you think I'm completely, you know, crazy thinking that it should be down to 2 elixir, or if you completely agree with my buff, or let me know what you guys would do to the card in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up as always, and I'll see you guys in another video. Peace out.